welcome everybody. I'm so excited to have you here on a Friday from all over the nation. And we're going to talk about corporate sponsorship today. And it has been so exciting to work with our clients on corporate sponsorship because rare disease foundations are very uniquely positioned to raise hundreds of thousands of dollars from corporate sponsorships. One of our clients has raised 400,000 and another 220,000, and they're not even done fundraising yet. So there's just huge opportunity, not only from a funding perspective, but also from a deep partnership perspective, because we're all working towards treatments for our families, and corporate sponsorships can help us get there faster. I'm going to jump into a quick intro and then we'll do our conversation with our real live funder. We're so happy you're here. If you're new to us, I'm Shannon with Rare Impact Agency, and we have a team that is here ready to serve you that is specific to rare disease foundations. So we have multiple clients across the nation that we provide either retainer services or project-based support across multiple fundraising focus areas. And we do everything from design to copy to video to text to give to print, everything. We're very excited to have you here. What we're going to cover today. We're going to cover why corporate sponsorship is one of the most powerful opportunities for rare disease foundations. We're going to hear from a real funder about what they want in a partnership, how to structure your sponsorship tiers and benefits, what goes in that sponsorship brochure, and then how to run your outreach and manage your sponsor relationships. And we're going to have lots of time for Q&A. But first, we have a very exciting guest. I'm so excited to have Luis Rodriguez, Director of State Government Affairs for Alexion AstraZeneca Rare Disease. I'm so appreciative of him coming today to share an inside look at what a corporate funder is looking for. And really, I wanted to bring him here because I also wanted to humanize the funder on the other side of the email. I think sometimes we kind of psych ourselves out that like, oh no, this person, how can I approach them for funding? And they're human just like us. They care about the same things we do, and it's just about forming that partnership. Hello and welcome. Tell us
Hello.
about your role and your passion for working with rare disease foundations.
Yeah, thanks, Shannon. And thanks to all of you. I'm really excited to be part of this. I will give a disclaimer first that I'm here in my personal capacity, so I may say things that don't necessarily reflect the views of Alexion, but come from the industry and have spent the last 6 years working for Alexion, but actually also come from a nonprofit background. So my entire career before I came into the industry was spent on the nonprofit side. I began my career actually doing grassroots fundraising at the American Cancer Society before moving into a role that was split between state legislative advocacy and fundraising at ACS CAN, which is the American Cancer Society's C4 advocacy organization. In the 6 years that I've been working in the rare disease space, I think I've been just so blown away continuously by how much you all do with so little resources and the passion that really drives everything. And so I think this webinar for me and my participation in it actually came from connecting with Shannon at an event a couple of months ago where we immediately hit it off, but I was just feeling, I think, really inspired to help advocacy or patient organizations generally do more with less, right? And trying to help just move the needle on the issues that they care about. I'm really excited to be here and excited to have a conversation with all of you.
Yeah, we met at the Northwest Rare Disease Coalition Seattle Rare Disease Fair at the end of March, who's another one of our clients. And just immediately, we both shared a passion for how do we help the entire ecosystem move forward. So I'm so excited to have you here. So tell us a little bit about what you're looking for in a partnership and how does a PAG specifically support your work?
Yeah, I would say emphasis on partnership, right? I think
Mm-hmm.
from my perspective, it should be a relationship, not something that is transactional. And I will candidly say, I think that in your conversations with other folks, you may not always experience that, right? There are absolutely people out there, funders out there who are more transactional. That's not how I tend to approach things. And I think that the best use of your time and our time, frankly, is to have really a durable relationship that isn't just based on one specific event, sponsorship, or one specific activity. And I think from my end too, we look to learn from you all as much as we look to work on the issues that we care about. We really want to learn what the issues are that patients are facing. So in my role in the government affairs space in particular, we do a lot of policy shaping work. And So anytime we can engage patient organizations in those efforts, that goes a long way for us. But also, if we can learn what barriers patients are experiencing, we can then go back to our team, use our expertise that we have internally, and come up with policy solutions to try to address those specific barriers. So I would say one that is durable and not transactional, and one that is also a two-way street in the sense that, we're providing as much to you as you are to us.
Yeah, and I think that those are the partnerships that I've seen really grow over time into quite large amounts. So the PAG is working with the pharmaceutical company to shape their protocols for clinical trial, making sure that they're matching the needs and the desires of the families, that there's this two-way conversation that's happening. And then the funding is the cherry on top, but you're
Yep.
working together to solve the same problem.
And I'll say even within a company, the best relationships are also cross-functional, right? I,
Yeah.
I have organizations that I work with that other parts of the company also work with on
Mhm.
a variety of different topics, right? So I think those are the most fruitful for sure.
Love that. So tell us about the different pots of money that exists within a corporation. Because I think sometimes people think, oh, there's just one amount of money, but they are very multifaceted.
Yeah, for sure. I think, a super important question and a really important thing to think about. So, this is going to differ depending on the company, particularly the size of the company. If you're targeting a very small biotech company that's kind of just getting going, this might look a little different versus a large pharmaceutical company that has
Totally.
thousands of employees. I would say that there's a few kind of major categories within functional areas, we'll call them, within a pharmaceutical company that all have their own budgets. So if we think about my team, we have the government affairs piece. So both state and federal, the things that we're interested in are engagement in those policy issues. So can you help mobilize people around legislation or regulatory issues that are important to the community, or testify in a committee, whatever that might be, and do some of that policy shaping work. You have market access folks. So those are the people who are really interested in what are the kind of working with health insurers and payers, right? So what
Yeah.
are the barriers that are in place from a payer perspective, and how do we get more favorable coverage for particular medicines so that patients can access them? They have different motivations, right? But if you have a payer angle, for example, that might be an area where you can kind of work with market access folks where they see the value in something like that. You have the traditional kind of patient advocacy arm, right? Those are the people who are working with usually the groups that are specific to the conditions that the company treats. So those
Yes.
are, if you have a product for disease X, you've got the group that represents patients from disease X that partner with the patient advocacy team. Those are often about clinical trials, patient insights, right? Learning from the community and really building that trusted voice with the community. But they have their own kind of pot of money, right? You have corporate affairs, which is a super vague term that I was just like, I don't really even know what that means when I started at the company, but a very common approach. So that's thinking about the sort of larger public affairs piece and corporate reputation. So sometimes you'll see sponsorship dollars come from that bucket because it's really about being a leader in the space, kind of being out there in a very public way. Then I think you sometimes will have alliance development as well, but that's a little bit different often from the patient advocacy budget. This is when you're talking about larger companies generally, but that
Yeah. So
is
maybe like national multi-organization. Yeah.
exactly.
Hmm.
Yep, those big national groups. And also, generally, in my experiences, those relationships have really been about engaging in that kind of policy change work as well, often kind of DC based and really focused on those kind of efforts. So I encourage you all to think about all of those different buckets, because I've had certainly instances where I'm like, we don't have the money in our budget at all because we have a very small budget, but this team over here might, and I could see the value in them funding it. And so we can kind of help navigate that for sure.
Yeah, I love that because I think a lot of people don't understand that there's a lot of hidden sources of funding within an organization like a corporation, but also a family foundation. So a lot of times with the family foundation, they'll have their open RFP, but then each board member has their own discretionary amount of funds. So you can actually be getting money from multiple sources within one entity. I'm going to read this comment real quick. That's helpful to hear about the different areas. We often get responses from both small biotech and big pharma companies that they do not have any focus in our condition. How should we think about that? It's a good question.
Yeah, that's a great question. It might be that if I think the larger companies, let's be honest, will have more resources, right? So those small biotechs that maybe don't even have a commercial product yet are going to have to be a lot more strict about the resources that they're putting out there. I think that where I see pharma companies having more flexibility is in, I would say, less on the market access side or even the patient advocacy side, but think about that kind of corporate affairs piece or this larger thought leadership or engagement with providers. So just thinking about ways that you might be able to engage a company that maybe aren't specific to a disease, but they might find value in being in the same room with, a rheumatologist that you work with or whatever it might be. I think just trying to be a little bit creative with how you engage some of those folks, but sometimes it just might be difficult to do, unfortunately.
Yeah, because you definitely bring PAGs with you to testify. So I know that sometimes you have
Yeah.
reached out to groups within a specific state because they're trying to move ahead some legislation and having a local PAG come and testify. Could you talk a little bit about
Uh,
that?
yeah, in my role at Alexion, we don't treat cystic fibrosis, but I've worked very closely with advocates in the cystic fibrosis community, for example, on particular issues because they've been leading the charge on certain things. I think in the government affairs space too, we're a little bit more open. At the end of the day, for us on in the government affairs side, it's like, how do we get the job done? Sometimes that means that we're engaging with people that aren't directly related to any of our drugs, and that is totally fine. I think that there's a little bit of an opportunity there too.
So keeping an eye on your state legislation, and if anything is related to whole genome sequencing or rare disease in general, I think getting connected with those coalitions because you might actually get access to the corporations who are partnering with those coalitions to move that legislation forward.
Yep, that's a great point.
Awesome. Okay, so once you receive the solicitation email saying, we would love for you to sponsor our event, what happens to that email afterwards? What happens? It's like, the great and powerful Oz. We don't see what happens afterwards.
Yeah. It's probably not that exciting, but I would say the first thing that we have to figure out is does it make sense, right? I can't even get to the point where I'm like, do I have the budget for this? If I'm like, I don't think this is the right fit, right? So if
Mhm.
it's an organization maybe that we haven't worked with before, I might be a little bit more skeptical of whether or not it's the right fit for us to actually engage. But then I think we would evaluate who has the resources and who should really be involved in this. So if it's something like a payer forum or an event that's focused towards a particular audience, we might then go to that functional area and say, hey, here's a great opportunity. How do we want to approach this? Does this make sense? Do you have it in the budget? Do these benefits make sense? Then we kind of will go from there.
And what does make a solicitation package feel compelling to you?
Yeah, I mean, I think the things that stick out for me and the ones that I have found very not compelling, I think are just making sure that it's a well thought through package, right? The levels are differentiated, for example, right?
Hmm.
I've seen sponsorship requests before where the 5,000 and the 10,000 are like basically identical levels,
Yeah.
or maybe you get two tickets to the event versus one ticket to the event. That's probably not enough to move the needle. So the ones that are really thoughtful about the different levels and the different engagement opportunities, I think are the best. Then also thinking about the scale of both the ask and also the relationship. So is it, if this is the first time we've worked together, are we going to put in $100,000? Maybe not, right? So it's also very tailored to us specifically. I think those are the ones that are most impactful.
Yeah, and starting small. So the first time you're reaching out to someone, it may be a $5,000 sponsorship, but as you grow that relationship over multiple years, it might grow to $100,000 if both of your interests align. And so I think that sometimes people think, oh, let's just go in big, 25K first ask, but it's like, just like all humans, need to be warmed up a little bit, and you prove that you're a trustworthy partner, that you're
Yeah.
going to deliver on those benefits you promised. Because you don't want to just have a bunch of benefits and then at the end of the day, you show up to the event and there's no signage, you're not on a panel. So, really building that trust and reliability that we're going to offer you the things and deliver them.
Yep. And we also have resource constraints, right? We have
Hmm.
finite budgets that have been allocated to us. And so we have to think about how do we use those dollars best within the context of whatever our functional area is. So we just have to be pretty mindful of those things. But to your point, yeah, I think that that's where that long-term relationship really comes in. And something that isn't transactional, it's not just let's sponsor this event, but it's more than that moving forward. I think those are the opportunities where you can come in and potentially increase those levels over time.
And we were talking on our prep call that I usually say, okay, you need to get your sponsorship requests out after Labor Day. And you were saying, ooh, we're actually starting to work over the summer on our budget. Because a lot of times people will come in March of the year and it's like, well, we've already given out all our money. And there may be pots of money, right, that we talked about to pull from, but they may be smaller
Yeah.
because you weren't built into the budget.
Yeah, and I've seen that's going to vary a little bit depending on the size of the company, but in a
Totally.
very large pharmaceutical company, there's so many layers and layers of budgeting that happen, so it definitely takes a while. I think they usually will start in July or something. So I would say as early as possible for sure. Also, if you miss the deadline or you miss the mark and you're in January, February, March, whatever, don't be afraid to ask because it's still if the opportunity is right, sometimes money can be found from various pots, but also I think that it's a good opportunity to still have the conversation. And if you're missing out on that particular event, there's also if you're in March, like you're 3 months away from the next budget cycle planning.
Well, that's true.
So
Yeah.
I would say, don't be afraid to ask anytime.
I love that. Now, how does it compare virtual events to in-person events? People have asked me, can we still do sponsorships for virtual? And my advice is usually yes, but they'll probably be smaller amounts because corporations are really looking for that in-person connection.
Yeah, I would definitely agree with that. I think the virtual events, depending on the event, right, it could make sense to do a sponsorship for it. But I think the value from my perspective would definitely be in the in-person events, right, where you're in a room with people where connections like the one you and I made just a
Yeah.
couple of months ago, right, can form. Whereas I think in a virtual setting, those are harder to do. And those are the things that I find really valuable in events is meeting new people engaging with new folks that I otherwise wouldn't have had an opportunity to. I would say definitely a premium on in person.
Yeah. I love that. That's perfectly put. Okay, my last question for you, and then we'll take two from the audience, is what is something that you want everyone on this call to remember when approaching a possible corporate partner?
I'm going to say two things. One is that we're humans at the end of the day, right? And you mentioned this at the beginning. So just keep that in mind. Don't be afraid of us by any means. In a
I
lot
can
of,
say you're very nice and approachable. So,
I'm super nice. I don't know that everyone is, but I try.
well, fair.
But in a lot of ways, we should be accountable to patient organizations. So you
Yeah.
should definitely not be afraid of us and come talk to us. And then the second thing I'd say is it might not work out this time, and it might not work out the second time, and it might not work out the third time. But just continue to have the conversations and just it's about finding the right opportunity at the right time. And sometimes it just doesn't work out because of a variety of reasons, but don't let that discourage you and don't let that get you down. As someone who has done fundraising in the past, it's very difficult work, I know. And it can be a little bit discouraging at times, but stick with it and try to be as smart as possible about the packages you're putting together, the events, the benefits, who you're targeting, and spending your time trying to have conversations with. And then hopefully it works out at some point in the future.
I love that. I so appreciate you taking time to talk with us all today. We have time for two questions, so go ahead and get your hands raised if you'd like to ask a question. But I just first want to thank you for being here because this is just so important for people to get to hear straight from a funder. So, who has a question?
Looks like we have one from Lauren in the chat.
What's the best way to find the right person to send that ask to? Great question. A lot of it is very hidden.
Yeah, that is a great question and one that I was actually thinking about this morning. I was like, how do I integrate that into the conversation? It can be really challenging. I would say I encourage you to lean on any coalitions that you're part of. So think about the events that you're in the same room with us, right? The government affairs people and probably the patient advocacy people are going to be out there in the community quite a bit. So trying to find those events, any conferences, you're going to have the patient advocacy folks, you're going to have medical affairs folks from pharmaceutical companies at those. So those kinds of conferences, I think those are the best ways to start the conversation, even if it doesn't make sense for my particular functional area. I'm always able to connect within the company. I definitely recognize that it can be challenging to find those right people for sure.
Yeah. Yeah, because we serve a pediatric community and it's kidney disease in general. So we're just helping provide joy and hope to these kids. So we don't, and maybe that's part of our issue is we need to attend more of these summits and get our face in front of them
Yeah, yeah, I mean, that could be a good approach for you. If you have doctors that you work with at all, do you have like, yeah, so I mean,
on the board. We even have
those
an
Yeah,
are
that's what I was going to
Alexion
say too. Going
person
to your
on our board.
clinicians.
those are probably people who have relationships too. So figuring out if there's an opportunity to kind of mingle in that setting.
Okay. Wonderful. Thank you, Louise.
Yeah.
Thank you, Lauren. Well, we had a little bit of a glitch and we lost the recording of the rest of this webinar. Apologies for that, so you won't get to see the Q&A, but I'm going to run through the slides now so you can see exactly how Rare Impact helps rare disease foundations solicit corporate sponsorships like Alexion. I really want to emphasize that your community is the greatest sponsorship asset. Literally, these pharmaceutical companies and biotech companies cannot do their business without you. You are critical to their bottom line. If they want to do clinical trials, drug development, gene therapy, they need your families. So always remember your strength when you're soliciting them. This is such a huge moment for rare disease research. We have never seen this level of investment, and it's only going to grow over the next few years. Even with all the changes with NIH and FDA, there are still so many pharmaceutical companies investing in rare disease research, and we want to help you get the dollars that are out there. Why is this important for rare disease foundations? Sponsorships are a huge source of unrestricted income. Sometimes people come to me and they say, well, we can't make a profit off of our event. You absolutely can. Yes, you want to cover your expenses for your family conference or your gala or whatever it is, but anything else that you raise above, that's your innovation fund. Then you can create a 30-day support plan for newly diagnosed families or bring together a think tank to figure out the best research modality or maybe even hire your first staff member. So that money is so critical to moving your mission forward. Also, creating those relationships with industry partners helps accelerate research towards treatments even faster because they're getting all the information from your families, which makes everything move faster. And lastly, they bring visibility to your organization. So we give you templates for them to share, we're proudly sponsoring blah, blah, blah foundation. And then you get in front of their networks. What if there's an employee that's inspired by your foundation? Then they give a donation and they have a matching gift from the company. And that is how it ripples out. It's a win-win creating these relationships. All right. Where do we begin? We begin with creating a tiered structure of levels and benefits that make sense. This is something that Louise talked about as that it has to make sense for the level of investment. If this is your first family conference and maybe you're only expecting about 20 families, you're probably not going to lead with a $100,000 top tier. It might be 25,000 or 10,000 because that might be more appropriate to getting started. And you're going to grow these sponsorships year after year. It's okay to start small to start building that relationship with that organization. So within that, sponsors are really looking for direct access to your community, having time at the in-person conference, maybe they're sponsoring an affinity group or a lunch, speaking on a panel, welcoming everybody to the evening reception, tabling at the event. There's lots of different things we can do to give that really juicy in-person connection time that corporations are looking for and they're willing to invest in. Okay, so what goes in your sponsorship brochure? So we design beautiful sponsorship brochures. And the reason we do that is this gets passed around a lot. So you email it to one person, then they forward it to that person, they forward that person. So you want it to be your best face forward every time. We want it to be clear, compelling, and beautiful. Telling your story, having that table of sponsorship levels really clear, and a really clear, easy way to sign up for sponsorship. Is it a form? Is it an email? We want to make it as easy as possible to sign up to support you. So here are some of the examples that we've done for our clients. We've done quite a few of these at this point. And we like to have beautiful welcome letters, really laying out the different sponsorship levels, especially if you have multiple events or a mix of in-person and virtual in a year. I want to make it very clear how everything works together. Sometimes you have national and regional opportunities. We want to make that very clear so they know, okay, this is for this and this is for that. And lastly, here's an example of a table of sponsorship benefits that we really want to show what all they're getting. All right, so sometimes if you have multiple opportunities in one year, especially a mix of virtual and in person, it can be a little confusing to a sponsor. So for this particular client, they had a lot of opportunities. So we decided to introduce a bundle. We all know what a bundle is. Bundling your insurance is on every other commercial, and everybody likes a deal. So what this does is say a sponsor comes in at platinum level on this family conference, this cycling event, and then their virtual opportunity on their webpage, they actually get a $5,000 discount for coming in at that top level across all three. And they get a huge year-round present. So it's a win-win for both, and it's a very persuasive thing to add when you have multiple opportunities in one year. How do you run your outreach? It's a marathon, not a sprint. So we tend to run this over 6 months, as you'll see in the next slide. But step one is you want to identify those prospects and start putting them into your tracker. Then you want to send a warm introduction. We create all of these easy to use templates for our clients for warm leads, cold leads, recommendations from other people. We give you a whole suite of options that you can then personalize with details of, oh, it was so nice to meet you at this conference or at that boot camp or whatever. But we give you that starting place that you can just build on from there. Step three is probably the most important and the one that I see the biggest misstep of most organizations. Everything's living in their email, and it's easy to get things lost in email. And you can't see the big picture when it's all in these separate email threads. We create a sponsorship tracker where you can track all the conversations, when all the portals are due, and maybe you ask for 10,000, but you only receive 5,000. That's an important detail that we want to know for next year. And you can create different tabs with different years on them. And so you can see how these sponsorship relationships progress year over year. So super important because I guarantee when you go back this time next year, you'll be like, what was that conversation I was having with Amgen? The tracker will tell you. Super, super important. Step four is to follow up consistently. Usually takes 2 to 4 touches before securing a sponsorship. Sometimes people may say no this year, but it's not a no forever. It just doesn't work out right now. Or maybe you came in too late after their budget cycle. So you want to loop back next year because a no could turn to a yes. Timeline for solicitation. We really think about a 6-month runway. Anytime you're planning events, you're pretty much planning 6 months in advance. At the beginning, you're working with us to design your sponsorship brochure, adding your prospects to the tracker, getting everything ready to go. Then 4 to 5 months before the event, you start solicitation. Those online portals are at least 60 days, so you want to get in there early. And then 1 to 2 months before the event, this is when we're shouting out to our sponsors, we're sharing latest details, we're cultivating them, getting them excited to attend. And then after the event, we're doing beautiful public thank yous, we're sending acknowledgments with our fair market value, that's that FMV, which we would talk through together. If they're receiving a dinner or any other value during the event, we have to do an FMV in the acknowledgement. We write and do personal thank yous. Also sharing photos and videos, having a photo video team there that's capturing your top sponsors in action and then providing that to them is a really nice touch. So when I was talking with Luis when we were doing our prep call, I was saying we usually start in September. He said, oh, we're actually starting our budgeting in July and August now. But it is May when we're recording this. So if you are interested in a 2027 corporate sponsorship, I know this is wild. We need to start now because we really want to solicit them in August because after Labor Day is going to be a little late. So you really want to get in there in the beginning of their budget cycle to ensure that they write you into their budget and you can get those larger amounts. You can solicit later, but They may say, we've already given out all of our money this year. And they maybe can pull from other discretionary ones, but it's smaller amounts. So, July to August. We want to keep the sponsors coming back. These are relationships that span multiple years and compound and get larger and more complex as you work together towards treatments. You really want to do all these steps before, during, and after to just like you would do your major donors. So you're cultivating them, you're stewarding them, you're making sure that you're delivering on every promised benefit with care and visibility. Having someone at your family conference that's literally checking off, okay, so and so got this, so and so got that, making sure that you deliver on your promises because that's how you build trust. That's how they know this is a good organization to partner with, and I want to partner with them at an even higher level next year. You already have everything they're looking for. If you're convening your groups together in person or virtually, you have relationships with families, clinicians, researchers, you are ready. You don't need to have a full-time staff. You don't need to have an existing sponsorship list. We can help you build that. You don't need to have a perfect plan. These corporate sponsorships are iterative and each year gets stronger. We love working with rare disease groups to put together their corporate sponsorship packages. So for only $3,500, which you can pay in multiple payments, we offer all of this. You get a strategic council session with me, CEO of Rare Impact Agency, 20-year fundraiser. I've done a lot of corporate fundraising. You get our Rare Impact sponsorship playbook, and then we customize all of these resources. Sponsorship tiers and benefit structure, corporate sponsorship brochure. It's usually 4 to 7 pages, depending on the complexity of your ask. Your sponsorship tracker spreadsheet, your draft email solicitations, and then social media templates to use to promote and thank your sponsors. If you're interested, jump on over to our webpage. We have secured up to 400K and another for 220K. We would love to bring this amount of funding to your organization through strategic corporate sponsorship. I also want to share with you our new 6-month fundraising accelerator program. So this is a full service retainer and a training mastermind. You get expert training from, I'm bringing in my top experts from around the nation to do private workshops. You have a training mastermind with other patient advocacy groups who are also learning fundraising at the same time that my team is delivering high impact products for you month after month. We are creating your corporate sponsorship packets. We're creating your end of year packages, your impact reports, your peer-to-peer campaigns, whatever. We are creating those for you while we're teaching you how to do fundraising and building out your infrastructure. After 6 months, you've gone from 0 to 100 in fundraising and you know how to do it on your own. We're super excited to support organizations and build their capacity at the same time. The price will go up July 1st, so book now. And coming soon, end of year and Giving Tuesday, it's around the corner. Our packages open July 1st, and we're doing bespoke print and digital campaigns. We're doing unique themes and design. We're bringing text to give and short form video to our clients, and we are doing print and mail campaigns. It's going to be amazing. We have a wait list here. First priority goes to our accelerator and retainer clients, and then we have the wait list. So our space is limited. We do have to sleep sometime in Q4. So grab your spot on the wait list now. Lastly, we love doing these free webinars every month. So our next one is on family fundraiser toolkits. We are working with our clients now on how to inspire your diagnosed families to host fundraising events on your behalf. So how to give them the toolkits, templates, scripts, all the support so they can do that. And also how to organize it for yourself that it doesn't feel so chaotic, all these different events happening. We're going to talk about the external and the internal. And that will be June 12th at 9 a.m. Pacific, noon Eastern, and we hope to see you there. Lastly, we have time for Q&A. Unfortunately, we didn't get a chance to record the Q&A. It was very juicy. People asked very specific questions. If you're watching this and you have a question, drop us a line at hello@rareimpactagency.com or schedule a discovery call and let's chat about your questions and about your corporate sponsorship goals. It was so wonderful sharing this webinar today with our group on the call, and I hope you enjoy this recording, and I look forward to working with you in the future. Thanks so much. Bye-bye.